Happening today, former President Trump will be back in court for day 6 of his New York trial. First up, a hearing on whether Trump will be held in contempt. Prosecutors accusing him of violating his gag order 10 times. Following that, ex-publisher of the National Enquirer, David Pecker, will be back on the stand to testify on the so-called catch-and-kill scheme, which is not illegal, where the tabloid paid to suppress negative stories about Trump. Here to react, Fox News editor Kerri Kupec Urbahn. Before we talk about the gag order and the hearing for a couple hours today, Kerri, what was your big takeaway from yesterday as the prosecution and defense had their opening statements?
Well, one, I was startled to see that the former number 3 of the Department of Justice was the one presenting opening arguments for Alvin Bragg's case yesterday. Very surprising, as we've discussed. That's a very coveted spot at the Department of Justice. It's one that typically people take and then go on to become a corporate bigwig. And so for this particular man to have that job and then go and work for Alvin Bragg and then be presenting opening arguments right from Biden's DOJ to the courtroom in New York City was quite something. The other point that stuck out to me was the defense kept making, which was that NDAs, and you just said this, Brian, earlier, are not illegal. Compensation for NDAs are not illegal. And then lastly, the prosecution did focus a lot on David Pecker, who we'll be hearing from today on the stand. But in fact, he is not exactly part of this case because this case focuses on Stormy Daniels, and he had much more to do with Karen McDougal. They're using him to paint a picture of Trump's general mindset, but it's actually not specific to the case before them.
Right. I have to tell everyone the reason why I was so brilliant in my talking point is because I talked to Kerri before the show, and she helped me with it. So when you just to outline this, the reason why you brought that up about Matt Colangelo, it makes no sense to you because he's at this prominent position at the Justice Department. He leaves it to go work this New York case, and yet they don't care about the perception that Trump keeps saying this is a Biden instigated trial. And they go, it's absolutely not, and everyone says it's unfounded. But when Matt Colangelo leaves the Justice Department of Joe Biden and goes and takes a job beneath him, leading the investigation, the prosecution of Donald Trump, that is saying, I don't care about perceptions. I'm just going for it.
Yeah, I agree. And objectively, it's a career downgrade. For instance, the person, my colleague who held that position when I was at DOJ, she's now a top person at Walmart. Rudy Giuliani, when he held that position in the early 1980s, he went on to head SDNY. So people typically go up, not down.
Gotcha.
So objectively, to take this kind of career downgrade, that means it's pretty personal. You're a true believer.
So let's talk about David Pecker. He's there because could be part of a plea deal. He's there because he was subpoenaed. He was taking a lot of questioning. Next thing you know, he's a state's witness. Do you, as a defense attorney, say, hey, David Pecker, why are you here? Are you here? Did you cut a deal in order to testify against Donald Trump? Does that come up? Is that allowed?
Well, they did give him immunity, to your point, and that's why we know what we know now. And apparently he told Trump years ago that he'd be his eyes and ears on the campaign. He said he would keep his ears open for bad stories potentially about him and then help to kill them, which is not illegal. Now, look, does it feel dirty and sleazy to some extent? Sure. I mean, it's the National Enquirer. But also, one thing, Brian, that we used to contend with all the time when I was at DOJ, people would come to Bill Barr and say to him, I want to prosecute this person and this person, typically fan favorites of the right. And Bill Barr would also always ask 2 very simple questions. What is the crime and what is the evidence? Just because something feels dirty doesn't make it illegal. And people need to keep that in mind in this case.
And Karen McDougal will be on the stand today. We expect if David Pecker wraps up. They only have till 11 and 2. Kerri, thanks so much. She was in there in the overflow room, which she told me is even better than being in court because you can see the whole thing. Thanks, Kerri.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.